Welcome back, everybody. WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Zach Gelb here with you for the main event. And now joining us on the hotline, this is just such a special treat. He is Temple University royalty, the Hall of Fame coach, got Temple to 5 Elite Eight appearances, and that is John Chaney. Coach Chaney, thanks for a few minutes, and how are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we appreciate the few minutes. So, the Big Five has their Hall of Fame ceremony on Monday night, and your 60th, it's the 60th anniversary of the Big Five, and your 87 to 88 team is being honored. After all these years, what stands out to you about that team?
Well, the most important thing is the fact that they still see each other, they get along well, they meet from time to time. All of the every generation of our teams seem to find time to meet with the families and go out to lunch together, or they travel from one state to another. They've met in Atlanta, and those that can't afford it, you got guys like Aaron McKee and Eddie Jones and Mark Macon and some of the great ones that look after each other and all sit down and tell a lot of lies on me.
As we're talking to John Chaney, and Coach, you know how special the Big Five is here in Philadelphia, and on that run in 87 and 88, you had a #1 team in the nation, and you had a classic Big Five game up against Villanova, against your dear friend Enroli Massimino. What do you remember about that game at McGonigle Hall?
Well, it was a epic contest because at that time the youngsters were so familiar with each other that you know that they were going to be fighting each other like brothers, I guess. But they would meet and play in the leagues all during the summer months, and so they were very familiar with each other. So it was like looking in the mirror, playing yourself in so many ways. But they were playing in a small arena like our McGonigle Hall at the time, and the teams were equal to each other. It was just a matter of time. If the game had gone on, it would have gone on with a score that was so similar and so tight that if you stopped the clock, anybody could have won that ball game, you know. Because the players were just great players at the time, and they all played against each other, as I said, during the summer months, which somewhat gave a high temperature to the game anytime we played each other.
We had Rolly on our show a few weeks ago, and he was telling me a story about how you guys would go to events together, and of course he would bring the Italian dishes, and you would bring some special food dishes as well. What kind of food dishes would you bring for Coach?
Well, I think that the WIP sponsored or ran a auction for Rolly and myself to come to their home to cook a dinner, and they were raising funds for some charity, I guess. I don't know. So Rolly and I agreed to participate in it, and when we did, it was out on the main line somewhere. The person that won the bid, the family that did, and we would go to the home and cook. Rolly would bring spaghetti sauce and all kinds of spaghetti dishes, and I went down to 9th Street where my friends were at the time where I grew up, Giordano's, and I got a big box of broccoli rabe. and we were in the kitchen with aprons on, cooking broccoli rabe, spaghetti and meatballs, and stuff like that. And his end was spaghetti and meatballs, and my end was broccoli rabe. So I grew up on the stuff, you know, a lot of people don't eat broccoli rabe, but I grew up on it because I was from South Philly.
I wish I could have grabbed a plate of that because I'm sure it was definitely delicious. Let me ask you this, though, as they're partying today in Philadelphia like it was 1985, as Villanova has another national championship. How happy were you for Rollie and Jay to get another national championship for Villanova?
Well, I was around when the first national championship came about. When Rollie was certainly, they were a lot better team, a lot more control, and they played Georgetown, who had a great team at the time, and ended up pulling a guy named Jensen off the bench for Villanova that shot the baskets with so much efficiency. I think they were way up somewhere around 80% or something like that, and Georgetown was like 78 or something like that. So it was called one of the great teams or great games of our century. And now this game with the team that Jay has, and great point guard. This kid Archie
Diacono.
My God, he's a throwback, and what a smart kid. I guess I would have loved to have to coach a player like that, which I did. I had so many point guards. All of our success has come as a result of having great point guards, all the way down the line from Nate Blackwell to Howie Evans, all the way down to people like Rick Brunson, the father of one of the kids at Villanova, and Aaron McKee, Eddie Jones. We had so many great guards in those years. Mike Verishwick and all the others who I see all the time, and LeVan Austin. In fact, his kid is playing for Temple right now. So you have players of that kind that really play a kind of controlled basketball. They don't make errors, and they know exactly where the timing of an offense should go, and they place the ball in the hands of winners, and they take a shot every once in a while that seems to go in the basket. They're very smart players, and Jay did a great job with them. They also played under control. They played with some direction, as opposed to Carolina, who had a great deal of talent. I mean, just unimaginable talent, and found themselves playing without, just running up and down the floor and trying to get some speed. But it looked like Jay was in charge, and it was the same kind of effect that Rollie had on his team, and Jay had the same kind of control on his team. They played a lot of different defenses, traps, and the zones, and it looked like Carolina was just completely confused because the timing was not theirs to have. And the game ended in perhaps a fitting manner with a shot that came as a result of the last part of the game for both teams. One guy threw up a Hail Mary on one team. The other guy came down with a structured shot that ended the game, and that was the shot that Archie perfected with a great pass on what we call a follow the leader shot, and the top of the circle. That was a great shot.
We're spending a few more minutes with the legendary coach, the Hall of Famer in John Chaney. Zach Gelb here with you, WHIP Radio. And you see both those programs, Temple and Villanova, they have tremendous leaders in Fran Dunphy and Jay Wright, and there still is that family atmosphere. But you know it better than anyone, whether it's going to be the event on Monday night or when the Liacouras Center gave you a standing ovation a few weeks ago when your 91 team came in, and you have a statue built after you in the Liacouras Center. Just with that whole family atmosphere, how much does it mean after all these years to still be loved and adored by the Temple community?
Well, I just think that in each of our cases, we have some reason to look back and thank people that were responsible for this kind of recognition. Peter, of course, who was our president at the time, found it so necessary to look toward the future in so many ways by having that university, the Lear Course Center, built. It's one of the finest arenas you'll find anywhere in the country, with just the amount of the seating that you should have. And now that we find a great coach in Fran Duffy, who has done a tremendous job, and found itself with a great leader, I'm hoping to see so many great years out of Fran. In fact, seeing his team in the NCAAs this year and having reached the pinnacle of success where they looked like so many games finished off with that one second shot. It was a shame that we lost in that manner, but there'll be so many more chances coming from Franny that we'll enjoy, and we'll look back at it and recognize what a great coach he is. And the players will keep coming. We'll get some players. He'll find some more players to look toward the future. And Jay has a great number of players that's going to be around. So we've had great coaches in the city. You got to remember now, we've had some of the storied coaches, such as Speedy Morris, for many, many years. He still is a great coach down at St. Joe Prep. And we've had great coaches from the beginning of time. All of them have been involved in basketball, that found its way all the way to the NBA, both referees and basketball. This is the birth of so many of great teams throughout the NBA, championship teams, and these guys are family members in so many ways, in that they involve themselves in events, raising funds for cancer research, and find themselves involved in getting together and discussing so many things they can do to help our community in Philadelphia. So I'm very proud of our guys and proud of the birth of basketball in this city.
And just as someone that's a student here, I think Fran Dunphy is a tremendous ambassador for this university, but there is some criticism from people on Twitter these days, as that's something you'd have to deal with when you were a coach, Twitter and all social media. But people get on Fran for his struggles in the NCAA tournament. How does Fran improve that in the next few years?
Well, let me tell you this. You know, the people that's criticizing him don't know doodly. That's an old word that we used to use. And there's no question, recruiting players is one of the toughest jobs that you can find. And it gets tougher and tougher because of the fact that so much is needed to get a team of the kind that Jay had this year. And you've got to build and nurture those players, and you've got to be able to not just recruit in this area, because you're competing against 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 other colleges that are found in this particular area. So you've got to be able to travel all over the country to get players and convince players to come. I think with the addition of Aaron McKee on Temple's team, I think that's going to help in terms of bringing about some kind of recruitment that's going to like to be in the city and like to be with Temple. And it takes a while. It's not easy having to go bump heads against 5 or 6 other coaches who are recruiting the same players. So it means you have to get around the country and try to introduce your program. And I think that if you leave it up to Franny, I think he'll get that done. But those that criticize Temple for all that he does and so many parts of our university contribute to the city in so many ways, I think that's a very foolhardy thing to do, is criticize the coaches in our city and the history of our city.
I have to bring you back 4 years ago. I was a senior in high school, and I was doing a radio show. It was my last radio show in high school, and we had on Dave Miller as an assistant coach out there in the West Coast, and you guys were recruiting the same player many years ago, and Dave Miller told this recruit, I forget what his name was, that he was going to call that recruit Monday through Friday at 4:30 a.m. for 5 straight days, just to show that recruit how early he would have to get up for a John Chaney practice. How many times did coaches do that and try to use that against you?
Well, that's the problem. You can't imagine that. The fact is that practicing early in the morning has its advantages, especially for the youngster who gets up and learns to get up and get his chores done. But it has a disadvantage when you're out recruiting against some of the great players. The parents might like it, but the kids don't like to get up and go to class.
I wouldn't like it.
Or go to practice. So every coach, instead of telling the youngster that you've got to get up at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, they say, you're going to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I've run across situations like that. I remember they did that. One of the guys used to coach Alabama, did that to Jason Ivey, the mother. That's another thing you have to confront when you're recruiting down south, is recruiting the mother as well, because the mothers are very sensitive about the fact. I remember Judd Heathcote years ago, they were from Michigan State, was recruiting Eddie Jones. And I was begging Eddie, don't go up there during the summertime. Wait until later. And he did. He waited until later and went up there when it was a snowstorm. And he's from Miami. So when you get a youngster that travels up to Michigan State, it's like going to the North Pole. And I know that as soon as he got back home, his answer to Michigan State, no, I'm not coming.
As we're talking to the legendary John Chaney.
The coach is tricky. Everybody has a little trick. I don't know that when you're recruiting kids from the South, you tell them you're going to the North Pole, and it snows up there, it's freezing up there. And these guys from the South, they don't have a lot of winter clothes because they don't. And then the guys up north, that when I'm recruiting the guys, if I was down south, I'll tell them you're coming down and you're going to be on the beach every day and in the beautiful sun, and you don't need a lot of clothes. It's a game that everybody plays. You got to overcome all those kinds of things.
We're spending a few more minutes with the legendary John Chaney, who joins us right now. And, Coach, it was a fresh of breath air to really see juniors and seniors start to dominate that tournament again. And now in NCAA basketball, you have John Calipari, who gets a lot more one-and-dones now and has that program with Kentucky. You know Coach Cal pretty well, and I wasn't even alive back then when you had the I'll kill ya incident. But how many times do people still bring that up to you to this day?
Well, my friends are always putting stuff up on the internet and showing my outrage, I guess. And I found that I was out of line. One of the things I should have done that would have been better had I waited for the game to get over and get away from the press and then go outside and then hide in the alley and then wait for him to come out in the alley and beat him up.
We had Mark Macon on the show 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me how much you still watch college basketball and you're a big fan of King Rice at Monmouth. And I was a little bit surprised by that, just the way that Monmouth has those bench celebrations. But who are some of those younger coaches now that you really just admire in what they're doing? I know we already mentioned Jay and Fran.
Well, there's no question. I was telling Mark, the team was a very small team, but they were like get all over you. The way they would scratch and paw, and the quickness of the team and the leadership of the little point guard on that team reminded me so much of so many of the point guards that we've had in the city. The way he directed that team, I didn't like the antics on the sideline because this kid, the coach King Rice, he's one that played for Carolina years ago, and I remember him. He wasn't a good shooter, but yet in that game he beat us at the Meadowlands that year. I think that was one of the teams that went on to win the national championship in the team that he had. And Mark certainly remembers that game that we played North Carolina in the Final Eight. I think it was one of them. But I just liked the team that was on the floor. I didn't like the decorum on the bench, and I never liked my players to display a disrespect for the other team or for the game itself. I don't like that kind of celebration because, once again, I like the control that you have and the respect that you have for each other and the game itself. You know, there are a lot of young coaches that I like in this game. I like the coach out of Texas now.
Shaka Smart.
Yes, he was at Virginia Tech, I think. I'm not sure.
VCU.
VCU, yeah. Virginia Commonwealth. That's where Mark Jackson went to school his first year before we got him to come to Temple. But he's one of them. And, of course, I've always liked the coach at Gonzaga. He just seems to get players over and over. He was one of my choices in the NCAA this year. So there's always a number of young coaches that I like and would hope that they continue to thrive and grow and get better at their game. But I don't like the antics. I didn't like the fact that the coach was playing one style and didn't recognize the kind of control that Villanova had over their players. They were well coached and under the instruction of a coach. Whereas the other coach allowed his team to run up down the floor almost like their heads were cut off. And I was very disappointed in watching, a coach, a legendary coach like Roy, allow his team just to, I think he went home with about 2 or 3 timeouts in his pocket. Because anytime you're playing a national championship, somebody gets 6 or 7 points in front of you, you've got to call timeout. You can't sit there and read the the Old Testament. It doesn't work.
Now, before we let you run, as we're talking to John Chaney, last one here with you, Coach. You're just such a legend here at Temple, and I said it earlier in this conversation, and I'll say it again. No one in the history of Temple gets a louder standing ovation now than Coach Chaney. Even when you're not at the games, they show that Temple made and Temple proud commercial that you film, and the place just goes absolutely nuts in the Liacouras Center. Since you've been removed from the game for a bunch of years, what do you just miss the most about Temple University?
I just miss, talking to the students and, lecturing to them whenever they do something bad. I can remember somebody threw something on the floor one year, many years ago, and I think I went up to the official and asked him to stop the game. I think I remember telling the students or someone in the stand that, if you throw something out here on the floor again, I think I'm coming up the stairs to get you. And I said, and I'm not going to bring the police with me. I'm coming to get you by myself. And we never had any problems of that kind because behavior at an event, at a massive event such as a basketball game, football games, and whatever, you cannot endanger the lives of other players or endanger the lives of people around you. You're in a crowd setting, so you have to behave and respect that event and respect the people that you come to cheer for or act, you can't act up when you're in a crowd. Crowd behavior is important at these events because I've seen so many of these events erupt over in the European and some of the South American countries where people come out of the stands and do some terrible things. So I was very proud of our students and proud of our teams and proud of our teachers who always tried to cooperate and tried to work. And so many of our workers were so good to our teams that whenever we'd win a game or we'd win a tournament or anything like that, you'd find that the workers were always walking around with their chest stuck out and bragging about how good their players were, our players were, and that kind of thing. So sports bring a lot of enjoyment. Even this year did a magnificent job of representing the school and having no turnovers.
Well, Coach, it's an honor to talk to you. We appreciate the time. This was a whole lot of fun. Thanks so much, and all the best, Coach.
Thank you so much.